y'all, it's Sarah. I have a quickie Christmas craft to do with you guys really quick today. Hopefully really quick today. I plan on doing this to go with a little Dollar General sign that I picked up that looks like this. I thought it was pretty cute, and they had this wall sticker that kind of matched with it, so I wanted to turn it into something, and I'm going to show you really quick what that is. What I'm going to be using today is this Dollar General wall art sticker. This really cute one that was just $1. I'm going to be using some different red tape, and you can see this is a Dollar Tree pack of washi tape. I'm going to be using this little skinny strip of red. I've also got some water duck brand red tape. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it. The 3 paint colors that I'm going to be using are Waverly Wax and Clear, Waverly Wax and Antique, and Waverly Chalk Paint in the color Crimson. I'm going to be using just my Dollar Tree bath sponge to get the paint look, and I'm actually going to try to throw this paint in with this tutorial. I usually don't do that, but I thought I could get away with it in this instance because it's going to be pretty quick. So the last thing, you guys know me, last thing I'm going to be using is some Ready Board brand foam core or foam board. This is something that you find in your school supply section, your office supply section, next to the posters. This is just kind of that foam centered version of it that's a little bit thicker. We're using the papery surfaced one, and I'm going to be cutting mine down to the following, and you'll actually have a little bit left over from this. I just do this because of convenience. But I've got one of my 3 by 30 inch strips, and then I've got a 12 by 18 cut for my backer piece. And this strip is going to be turned into my frame piece. And really quick, I wanted to address something. There are people that are still struggling to get some cuts and asking about, is there a better direction? There is. I don't know if you guys can see in this. It has a ripple kind of effect, the way that it is manufactured, and that is almost the grain of the foam inside. And if you cut along this long way with that, you get a much cleaner edge than you do when you go across this short way. So that's why you typically see most of my strips or most of my pieces cut at this 30-inch length, because I get a much cleaner cut that direction. So all that being said, I want to hurry up and get this done so I can get it on my counter. I'm going to move my white things out of the way and pull my paints out. Okay guys, I'm back with my paint, and I'm going to dive into painting this 3-inch strip. And for those of you that ask, does it have to be 3 inches? No, it does not. This is exactly why mine is 3 inches, because the ruler that I started out using was 3 inches wide. And I found that it is easier for me to hold and maneuver and get an even version of my faux wood look at this 3-inch scale. So that's what I use. I'm actually going to be cutting this down to get my 1-inch framing strips. So this is even bigger than what we actually need. I do this out of convenience more than anything. So if you want to cut yours down ahead of time, I will say that getting this paint look on a thin 1-inch strip can be a little trickier than doing it on this and then cutting it down. So I'm going to show you really quick what I'm doing. I have the paints that I mentioned, my Waverly Wax and Clear, which this one I've kind of dipped sponges all into it, but I'm going to be using my Clear, my Waverly Wax and Antique, and this is my Crimson color. I've got a sponge for my Antique color and a sponge for my Crimson color. And really quick, normally I recommend doing your edges with one of the kitchen sponges because it tears these up so quickly. But I'm only going to be doing one of these right now, so I'm going to go ahead and use this and start with my edges. I already have a little bit loaded. So what I have done here, I'm going to move this to the side so I can show you. I come in, I want the red pigment, but as far as what's actually doing the majority of my paint coverage is usually my clear wax. This we're just using to get the pigment. That's why I'm using chalk paint. It's less watery. So I'm mixing it in with my wax, and that's what I have on my sponge. And that helps keep our foam core from breaking down and peeling and warping and curling and doing all that kind of stuff. So I'm just doing these edges really quick. It makes it easier to start with them because you can clean up any kind of mess that you make on these edges. Normally you see me do a whole batch of these, but I just wanted a red frame for this, so I'm only going to be doing just this one. So my next step, and I'm still using the crimson and clear wax mix, I'm going to go in and start intentionally kind of considering where I'm going to put this red graining. So I'm going to drag it across, and you can see even mixed with more clear than the red, it's still heavily pigmented. That's why we're using this. And it's just a much less wet paint than acrylic. You can get away with acrylic. You will see a lot more curling and warping a lot of times with the acrylic. So you can see I'm kind of being a little intentional where I'm setting down the darker of that red pigment. And I'm even leaving some white space, and wherever you leave that white space, your antique color is going to build over that in layers. And it's going to give it almost like a wood is showing through kind of look. So one thing that I want to say when you're doing this is you don't want to overwork your paint into the piece. It kind of mutes the lines that we're working into it, which is why I'm being fairly specific where I'm laying heavier pigment here and there, so you can kind of see what I did there. Now you're going to want to give this or any of these that you're doing a little bit of time to dry so that your colors don't blend. Instead, they'll layer on top of one another. So I'm going to give this some time to dry, and I'm going to go ahead and work on another part, the backer part, while this part is drying. Okay, so this has had some time to dry. I went ahead and cut my backer piece and my vinyl wall decal down, and I'm going to go ahead and do the next step on this piece, which is to come in with my antique color, and I'm going to dip my sponge in there. I don't want to go in too heavy to begin with because you can always go darker, but it's a whole lot harder to go lighter. And just know that the deeper that you lay your red pigment down here, the deeper this overall color is going to get. The lighter you lay it, the lighter it's going to get. It'll almost be a pink shade, especially once we put this antique over it. And we're basically mimicking what you would do to get a real kind of faux finish on a piece of furniture. Now you're coming in and adding that antiquing. I wanted you to be able to see what happens when you leave the white areas. You get that brown kind of wood look showing through. So this ends up being like a stained kind of colored wood look. This definitely goes into the darker barnwood look of your red tones. If that makes any sense. If you continue to layer over this, let's say you want it a hair brighter, that red to be a hair brighter, you can come back in again after this antique has dried and drag a little more of your red and clear mix over it. Now remember, we're using that clear wax to help keep this from damaging our foam core piece. So you can come back in and brighten that up, and mine might blend out because I'm not giving much time to dry in between those layers. But then you can drag in a couple of brighter streaks. And you can repeat those layers. That's one of the things that I love about working with this material and the wax paints, is you can always build on those layers. So I have some that have had time to dry so that I do not get any red paint on my white back piece. So I wanted to show you really quick how some of this barnwood red works out looking. You definitely can see it. It has that old rustic faded out barn look. I think this is really fun for the Christmas holidays. I went ahead and cut down 1 3-inch strip so that I had my 1-inch strips, and I went ahead and painted out the white sides and cheated and cut those 1-inch strips down to 2 18-inch strips and 2 12-inch strips. So it works out that it takes 2 full strips to frame out our piece. And you can see I went ahead and did all the edges on those. I'm going to bring in my backer piece. And I'm not even going to get fancy with the mitered edges. I'm not even going to go that far into this. This is supposed to be super fun and super easy. So I'm going to go ahead and get to my tape here. And I'm not sure how many rows of this tape I'll be able to get out of this, but we'll see. So I want to come in. I know that I'm going to have 1-inch frames on each side of this, and you can see I'm just going to do a very basic frame and go just from edge to edge and bump those up against each other rather than even mitering them. And I may have to do a little trim work here, it looks like. So I know that I need at least 1 inch beyond that, maybe, to do my stripes. I went ahead and took my wall sticker vinyl decal out of the package. I literally cut it in half because it pretty much goes together like this, if you can see. And then we're going to add our little striping really simply down the sides. And I haven't made up my mind, and I was going to do this on the fly, whether or not I want it to go this direction or that direction. And I think, honestly, I'm going to end up going this direction, I believe. So let's go ahead and dive into this. The layout on here is pretty simple. I cut this in half. It originally came pretty much like this. I cut down this section. It looks like I need to cut this little side piece that says established. There is going to be a little bit of a shine difference, and you guys are going to ask me, can you Mod Podge on the foam core? And I'm going to warn you that that can work fine on a small piece, but when you get a span that's like this big, that's 18 inches, the amount of Mod Podge that you have to put on this to cover this and seal all of this down is typically enough moisture to make this paper surface dry up, shrink a little bit, and cause this thing to curl and warp on you. So be aware of that. On small pieces, it's a whole lot easier to use Mod Podge. On something bigger like this, it gets a little riskier. Okie dokie, so I think I am going to go ahead and go this direction. If you look at their little example here, I'm pretty much going to follow, I know that glare is terrible, I'm going to try to follow their little setup on this. I'm not going to change it a whole lot, so that helps me. And it looks like maybe somewhere in here they stuck this little piece. So I'm going to try to get all of this measured out and stuck down. And to do that, I'm going to start with, since I've decided I'm going to go up and down, I'm going to start with figuring out where I want my little decorative lines to go. And I think I'm going to come 1 inch up, so I'm going to mark at 2 inches. Really lightly with a pencil to lay down my washi tape. And for those of you that are curious about what washi tape is, it's just a very thin, typically paper-like tape that a lot of paper crafters use. So there's nothing specifically unique about it, other than it usually has a lot of fun patterns to it. If you have some other kind of tape that has a color or pattern that you want to use, like I have this duct tape, if I want to use it. So whichever way, you could always mask this off and paint it just the same way we did the framework, but I felt like this was much easier. and no risk of paint bleeding or less of a chance of me warping this center piece that we're going to be using as our backer, because I'm not putting anything else behind it. I'm just going to have it this one thin layer. So I'm just going to come in and determine how many stripes I want. You could absolutely get as fun and creative with this part as you want it to. And I want to show you really quick. The duck version of masking tape, this was a Walmart purchase, and I think it was around $2 for this roll, which I didn't mind, not just specifically for this project, but I use masking tape anyway for painting purposes. It just happened to be that this red color was going to work for this. Okay, I needed a minute, y'all. That tape was giving me fits to get started. So now I have it started. I just want to show you how easily you can go in with something like this. I am not sure if I want it to do... You know what? I'm gonna. Just because I want to show you guys more than one option. You could do this with just a couple of the thin ones. You could do this with a couple of the thicker ones. This is just some ideas to dress it up to make it look a little more like something other than foam core. I'm just going to, because I'm going to do another skinny line, I am going to mark where that other skinny one goes. These skinny ones can be a little bit tricky to get them completely straight. And you can see how that looks. And I want to see if maybe I have enough room to do the very same thing from the top down. Let's see. This comes up at about... It looks like I just barely have enough room to do top and bottom with that stripe. So I think that could be pretty fun. And I think that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. So I'm going to copy the same pattern down here at the bottom. I got all my tape stuck down nicely, and I'm going to go ahead and come in and trim it off really evenly. However you feel comfortable doing this. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing to get that washi tape trimmed off really cleanly. I just line my ruler up to my foam core and use my razor blade, just my straight little razor blade, to flush that ruler up against there. I'm going to start above. Anytime you cut like this, always start above where you're trying to cut. It keeps there from being drag as that blade hits that initial cut. So same thing on the other side. Go ahead and trim all this down. All of mine is neatly trimmed, and here is why I wanted to make sure that I got it trimmed against these edges really well, is that at the very end, once I put my frame on, if I want to come in and paint these edges to match my red trim, I'll be able to without that tape getting in the way. So I want to show you our finished piece. How cute is that? Just think, put a monogram there in the center. This is a cute idea. Pretty much any way around, you could put anything in the center of this. I'm going to show that really quickly. Another thing you can come in and do, and I want to kind of declare a little caution on this. You can fade out these lines on your tape just a little bit by sanding across your tape. But especially with red, be very careful. The dust off of this, once you sand that down, can hit that white and cause some pink residue. And you don't want to sand too much into your foam core, but you can kind of scratch that surface down to lighten it up and make it look a little more rustic. You can see, though, the white through the tape kind of gives that vibe anyway. So my next step is going to figure out where I want to lay my framing pieces and my little decals. I think I will go ahead and trim down my frame pieces. I'm pretty close. There is the 20 by 30 measurements on your foam core. It's not always precisely 30 inches long. So it looks like there's a little bit of trim work that could be done on this one here to cut in between there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that part so that I can figure out where my frame's going to be and get my pieces laid. Now I'm ready to start gluing my framing pieces down, and all I'm going to be using is just Dollar Tree regular hot glue. And just go ahead and start putting these pieces down. So I go all the way from end to end with my hot glue because I want these edges to seal pretty tight up against each other. Now is a good point if you wanted to, before you place these, to come in and paint your edge red so that there's, in case you don't get a good alignment here, that none of this white is likely to show through because it's harder to get paint to squeeze down in there. But I'm just going to go ahead and do mine afterwards and hope that I get these attached really nicely. And once everything is in place, I'll be able to really kind of see where this is going to fit on my page or my backer piece. And here we go. I really would love to do this with monograms. I think that would be super cute. I really think that would be cute. So there's my finished 18 by 12. Now I can come in and just start laying these things down. Since I am going to be using pretty much mostly their layout, the only thing that I need to do is they have a space there for the established part. So I need to cut this away a little separately so that I can figure out my alignment, and then I'll be able to start sticking. So I snagged my little sample out. I've got it pretty much laid out how they do. It's really cute on the image, so I didn't figure there was a reason to reinvent the wheel here. This is going to be pretty simple and straightforward. You're just going to stick it all down like a sticker. I am going to try to eyeball this and get it close to good. Now, I will tell you that the way these are made, the print part of it is fairly matte. So if you wanted to come in and trim down that shinier area, you could. Now, on the word bakery, you're more likely to see it. But you could do that if you felt ever so inclined. This is basically maybe a $2 investment here for decor. I am not going to get that hung up in that part of it. So I've got just a little tongue depressor fat popsicle stick here that I'm using to help smooth these down. And I'm just going to continue to go through and apply each one. They're basically pretty straightforward. They made it pretty simple. I could see this being cute on a pantry door. If you didn't even want to do this whole backboard piece, just popping this on a pantry door would be super cute. So I'm going to go ahead and finish popping these down, and we'll show you guys the finished result. Okay, so here's my final layout for mine. I know you can see the shininess right now, but you guys have to consider that I have like 10,000 watts of overhead light going on because I'm blind. In my kitchen, the odds of seeing the shininess to this degree are a whole lot less. But if you can see how cute that is, especially together, this will be able to be popped pretty much anywhere I want to. It's super lightweight. If I want to pop it on my pantry door, I absolutely can do that. It weighs almost nothing, and you've got a full finished 12 by 18 piece. It looks really cute with its little Baking Spirits Bright companion piece. I love a good pun. Everybody knows that about me, so I could not resist that. So this is it. This is everything that I've got for you on this. You could always come in and add a little matching bow if you wanted to, but I hope you guys like that. I love this. It is not traditional colors, but absolutely, this is the color of my craft room anyway. I love it with the red. I hope you do too, or it gives you an idea of some things that you can do with some of these vinyl stick-ons or window clings or things like that that I've been seeing. For just a holiday seasonal piece, this is absolutely adorable, I think. I hope you like it, or at least it gave you some ideas. My last thing, I'm going to finish out my edges and get it put up. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.